What is going on, Wastelanders? It is me, Lone Vault Wanderer, here with some more gaming news for you. Today's gaming news is a bit different, but I hope the topics are interesting enough for all of you. Please share your thoughts about them in the comments below. Again, there will be 3 topics that I'm going to be talking about in this video, so let's get into it. So as many of you might know, there is a System Shock 3 coming in the near future from the developer Otherside Entertainment. So why am I talking about System Shock 3 on this channel? Well, essentially, BioShock is is considered to be a spiritual successor to System Shock. The original System Shock was a great game. I haven't played it personally, but from what I can see, it was definitely a solid game. And of course, it provided the inspiration to BioShock, which, as you all know, is a series I absolutely adore. So when they first announced that the original System Shock is getting a remake, I was fairly excited for it because it means I don't need to play the older game at the lower res graphics. I can just wait for this newly up-resed edition and really enjoy it. And the reason why I'm actually talking about System Shock now is because their remastered pre-alpha gameplay for System Shock 1 has been released a couple of days ago. In fact, it was probably 6 days ago. But anyways, you're seeing some of that footage on the screen now. I'll link it in the description below too, so you can check it out for yourself. But it looks really awesome, and again, it's getting me hyped to jump into this series, one that I haven't played, but I still have a lot of respect for because it spurred the creation of BioShock. Apparently, this remaster is using the Unity engine, and it does show. It actually looks really good. Someone commented in that video that it actually looks as good as Unreal Engine 3, and it's really hard to deny that. And again, it's not that I'm a stickler for graphics or up-res games or anything like that, but given the current landscape of the gaming industry, where we just have really high quality graphics, you kind of get used to that. And that's not to say that I can never go back and play an older game. In fact, you know, some of my most beloved games of all time that I'll still go back and play today are games that have older style graphics or not as good graphics as today's games. But I'd be kidding myself if I said that I wouldn't prefer to have an up-res version of System Shock 1 that I can actually get into, and the fact that we're going to be getting that is really exciting. So let me know in the comments below whether you're also excited about the remastered System Shock 1 and also the upcoming System Shock 3. The second news topic is something we actually touched on slightly in the Ham Radio podcast, and there is a rumor going around that Sony is working on a more powerful PlayStation 4. The gamesindustry.biz article is listed in the description below, but I'm going to read it, pretty much the main bits for you. So according to a Kotaku report, Sony is working on a new, more powerful PlayStation 4. Sources say that the system will include an upgraded GPU to support 4K resolution for games, in addition to offering more processing power for PlayStation VR titles. As you all know, the PlayStation VR is coming out this year. It looks to be promising. I've actually used it. I got the chance to play, I can't remember what the demo was. I think it was some sort of shooting game. And then I also played this title where you go down into the ocean and there's like a shark constantly attacking the cage. It was pretty cool. But this news is very interesting because it comes relatively close after Phil Spencer was talking about potentially wanting to provide upgrades for the Xbox One, so like a new GPU, new processor, etc. And we talked about this on the podcast because Maddie and Noah were firmly of the view that no, there shouldn't be any upgradable components to the current gen consoles, let alone a completely new console that comes with a better GPU, etc., which this rumor seems to support. And this topic is really interesting because I think it shows, in my personal opinion anyways, that the traditional console model is changing, or it's going to change. Traditionally, when a console was released, whether for example the PS3 or Xbox 360, they stuck around for about 7 to 8 years until we got a new console. And in my personal opinion, while the PS4 has sold very well and still the Xbox One has sold very well, that traditional model is not dying, but I think is going to change and kind of has to change. Nowadays, the market is demanding high-res graphics, they're demanding better quality games, and because of that, I don't think people are going to want to go 7 to 8 years without getting an upgrade to their hardware to be able to support these better looking games. That's why many people are going to PC gaming, because whenever you want a new GPU, whenever you want new RAM or whatever it is, like I just upgraded to my PC, you can get that. You just buy the new component, add it to your PC, and you're done. But what Maddie and Noah were saying was that, look, people that are buying consoles don't want to have to go through the hassle of determining which edition of the console they should purchase, whether it's, for example, the regular PlayStation 4 or the upgraded 4K PlayStation 4. They don't want to have to go through, in the case of the Xbox One rumors, buying separate components, additional GPUs, or additional processors that make their consoles look and feel better. They just want to buy the box, they want to plug it into their power and play a game. That's typically the benefit of console gaming, is the fact that you can easily just purchase it without thinking too much, plug it into the power, chuck in your disc, and it's easy to play a game. As much as I love PC gaming, it's not that simple, and that's okay. It comes with a little bit more complexity, not as much as people think, admittedly, but the fact is that it still requires some research. Like, for example, when I wanted to purchase a new GPU for my small form factor PC, I had to really research about which GPU was appropriate. Now, that was a bit easier because the 970 just came out, but I still had to decide, well, do I want the 960, 970, 980, etc. And when I just purchased a new RAM stick or 2 RAM sticks, I had to determine which brand was best, what speed was appropriate for my motherboard, what max memory my motherboard actually supported, whether it was 16 gig or 32 gig, etc. So there is a bit more complexity to it. And again, while it can seem overwhelming, even though it's not too overwhelming at the very least, it's definitely more overwhelming when compared to the process of purchasing a console. So with these rumors about a PlayStation 4.5, with these rumors about an upgradable Xbox One, it's going to be interesting to see how the consumer reacts when they just want to easily go up and purchase a new console. But personally, from my perspective, I think those mentalities are changing. People, again, are constantly demanding better looking games. I think that's why there is such debate, such fierce debate than compared to the past about, oh, my game is 1080p and it runs at 30 FPS and runs at 60 FPS, whatever. I think that is evidence of the fact that the mentality for consumers and game consumers are changing. People want the best, and being able to purchase a PlayStation 4K, let's call it, or purchase upgradable components for an Xbox One might fit really nicely with that mentality, because it means you don't have to go 7 to 8 years with the same style of graphics. Yes, games completely change from the start of a console generation to the end of the console generation. I mean, look at the PlayStation 3 or the Xbox 360. Games look and ran much better compared from when they were first released at the start of the generation to when they were released at the end of the console generation. So look, it's an interesting topic, and I'm going to be keeping a close eye on seeing whether the PlayStation 4.5 rumors are correct, and also seeing what Microsoft is going to do in response. Alrighty, and the big news for today, which is kind of relevant to Bethesda fans because we had this with Elder Scrolls Skyrim in the past, is the fact that Valve is experimenting with more paid user-generated content in Dota 2. Effectively, they've brought paid mods back. The Polygon article is in the description below, but I'm going to read the first couple of paragraphs because it sums it up nicely. Quote, after an aborted attempt to introduce paid mods last year with Bethesda's Skyrim, Valve is once again dipping its toe into the water of paid user-generated content with custom games in free-to-play behemoth Dota 2. Valve revamped the way custom games work with Dota 2 when the game's Reborn client launched last summer, allowing creators to more easily share and surface their custom game types. Valve also added prominent promotion for popular variants, leading to something of a resurgence of interest, and today the developer announced that specifically chosen makers of custom games will be allowed to sell premium custom game passes, adding a monetization model for mod makers to Steam once again. So if you can all recall back to last year when Bethesda and Valve partnered together to sell paid mod content for Skyrim, there was an absolute outroar. I thought it was a bit unnecessary, but there you go, those were the facts. People were very, very upset that Valve and Bethesda were trying to sell us mods nowadays. What happened effectively was that Bethesda partnered with some of the really, really well-known mod makers on the Steam Workshop and on the Nexus website, such as the creators of Wet and Cold, for example, and effectively they released newer versions of those really, really successful mods in the past on the Steam client, but for a price. Now, one thing in particular that people were really upset about was the split between mod creators, Bethesda and Valve. The point is that people didn't believe that the mod makers were getting enough money. People believed that the mod makers should have at least be getting 50%. So it's interesting to see Valve trying to attempt this again with one of their own IPs. I don't know if Bethesda is ever going to try what it did again with Skyrim. I think the backlash will be extremely high, especially because Fallout 4 is not as loved as a game as Skyrim is, from my perspective anyways. But I think because Fallout 4 isn't like as beloved as Skyrim is, I think the backlash will be even worse if Bethesda tried to replicate what it did with Skyrim. Now, admittedly, there doesn't seem to be any backlash to Valve when it's trying to do this with Dota 2, which is interesting. That might just reflect the fact that Bethesda fans have different expectations of Bethesda, and they've been enjoying free content for so long on the Steam Workshop and on the Nexus website that they don't want to have to start paying for them, and they thought that just donating to mod authors was a much more appropriate way way to ensure that they get paid for what they were doing. But honestly, I think Bethesda will eventually try its hand at paid mods again. I think mod authors definitely deserve the right to make money from what they're doing, because they're spending hours upon hours of creating these awesome mods, and they're really not seeing much monetary benefit from it. So effectively, they have to find other ways to spend their time in order to actually obtain an income, because it's such a time-consuming process. So many mod authors are thinking, well, I actually have to get a part-time job, I can't just sit and make mods all day. But what if they could? Imagine the great mods that could be released and created because mod authors are getting paid for it, their time is compensated for it. I think that incentive would be really, really good for mod authors, because it would mean on our side we're actually getting more mods and higher quality mods, potentially on par with what we're actually getting from Bethesda. So I don't know, Wastelanders, let me know your thoughts about paid mods in the comments below. I'm sure none of you want to see it return for Fallout 4, but it could happen. So anyways, that's all from me, guys. This has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and as always, keep fighting the good fight.